This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today I'm so excited because I'm talking to somebody in Colorado. Yeah, people always say, where are you from? And I say, well, I live in Atlanta, but I am from Colorado. And until the day I die, I will be from Colorado. So it's always so much fun when I get to talk with somebody from Colorado. And so please join me in welcoming Valerie Morris to our program today. Welcome, Valerie.
Thanks so much for having me, Deb.
Great. Well, before we jump in, let me tell people just a little bit about you. So Valerie Morris is a digital marketing strategist who believes that you can be successful in marketing and have a balance in life. She understands social media growth tactics and how they fit in with other digital marketing disciplines. Valerie founded Tintero Creative, a digital agency based in Colorado. She is active in the digital community in Denver and a speaker at conferences and events. She is also the author of the book, We're All Ears, How to Increase Your Impact, Influence, and Success Online in a Noisy World. When Valerie actually shuts off her devices, she can be found running around with her dogs, doing Pinterest projects, or searching for the best queso this side of the border. So again, Valerie, welcome.
Thanks again. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
And we really are going to have so much fun because talking about social media and your digital impressions and things like that is where we started. When I originally started doing the program, it almost exclusively focused on social media, on providing tips for people. And then we kind of branched out from there. But it's kind of my core. It's my baby. It's where I spend my time. It's where people pay me to spend my time. And I think the problem though is so many people think they're experts, or the other extreme. They think, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And so they get very confused. But let's go back a little bit. Tell us how it is that this is what you decided was your passion in life.
Oh gosh. Okay. So, I think it's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually started off my professional career doing architecture.
Right.
And social media actually was invented, I guess if you consider MySpace the start, that was a little bit before college for me, but Facebook, I remember the day that it came to my college.
Wow.
I remember the night,
Mm-hmm.
and it was that shift. We all shifted from using AOL Instant Messenger to
Mm-hmm.
using Facebook
Mm-hmm.
to all be connected and
Right.
to tell each other, hey, we're going to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
See you there in 15 minutes. Because back then we also didn't have texting
Mm-hmm.
very easily because it was expensive.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I remember that moment where Facebook kind of became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also remember a few years later when Facebook became a thing for the rest of the world.
Right.
That I feel like was really when people started taking it seriously as a marketing option.
Mm-hmm.
And by that point, I was out in the real world, working, enjoying my career to some extent. But honestly, I was kind of bored. The schooling for architecture is so grueling, so intense.
Right.
It's a lot of left brain, right
Mm-hmm.
brain kind of thinking. And I just realized, hey, maybe there's something else I could do with my degree. And so I started looking around for other options and started getting into doing more graphic design.
Ah.
And that opened up opportunities for me to work at an ad agency and doing some graphic design stuff, but also getting my feet wet with social media because I was the young person in the office who knew how to do social media.
Us oldsters went, oh.
Right? Yeah, all these people were like, I don't know.
Right.
And
It'll never catch on.
Exactly. Yes. It's funny. I remember people saying that. But so I ended up having the opportunity to work on some really cool projects really big things that normally I probably would have had to wait another
Mm-hmm.
8-10 years to have the opportunity to work on stuff of that scale.
Mm-hmm.
But that really opened up the opportunity for me to get some real hands-on experience working with some larger retail clients,
Mm-hmm.
some bigger brands, some luxury brands, and get a taste for what was actually going on. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's been fun because it's always evolving. Social
Right.
media changes daily. And so I've been able to grow and actually branch out and start my own business
Mm-hmm.
doing social media management and social media consulting, and be able to grow as it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of a strange thing to be doing something for a living that did not exist. I could not get a degree in social media. You
Mm-hmm.
can now. So it's just kind of a strange concept, a strange world to be living in,
Mm-hmm.
where that was the case. But looking back, like, I remember as a little girl thinking how fun it would be to be able to make magazines for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I remember pouring through magazines as a kid
Mm-hmm.
and just thinking this would be really fun. And so I feel like I get to do that now with all my clients'
Mm-hmm.
social media profiles. I get to curate these little digital pieces of a magazine every day for them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it is something that is continually evolving. You mentioned the word MySpace. I think MySpace actually still does exist.
It does.
But it's very, very niche. The people who use it are very specific. And then of course we have all the different platforms for the various demographics. I saw something the other day that millennials really have said, now we're not using Facebook anymore. And if that's your audience, okay, then you need to figure out where you need to be. I have a school here in Atlanta that wants me to come talk to, and as high schoolers, talk to them about LinkedIn, because they know how important it is as a high schooler to start developing your connections, and all of these various things. And so it is something that is continually evolving. But as I mentioned at the start, so many people are just completely terrified of it, or they think people are only posting about politics, right? Or, things that, they don't really care about, or more importantly, not business related. And so what do you tell someone who comes to you and says, hey, Valerie, okay, we got this small business. We've got these great products that we sell. And somebody told us we need to be on social media, but it's a waste of time. How do you convince them that it really is something very beneficial?
Well, from my experience, one thing I've learned is that you really, it's very hard to convince people
Mm-hmm.
that hate social media that
Right.
it is their time.
Yeah.
Because the best clients are already bought into
Mm-hmm.
the value there.
Right.
But what I will say is that a lot of people think about social media as only their business profiles.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people disregard the power of the personal profile with
Right.
your face
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, I've gotten more leverage out of my personal LinkedIn profile and
Mm-hmm.
my personal Facebook profile from a business standpoint than I probably ever have from my business profiles.
Right.
And granted, the business profiles give me opportunities to do advertising and do all sorts of other things
Mm-hmm.
that I can't do on a personal profile. But being a referral-based business, I get a lot of interaction on those personal profiles.
Right.
And so it's funny because, as you think about the next political season kind of bubbling back up again, it's very tempting to say, I'm just going off of it. I can't be on here.
I don't want to see it. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see it. But at the same time, I get so much out of being active on there. And so I think it's more figuring out how do I be strategic during that political season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for people, I think it's helping them understand that social media is more about the relationship that you are bringing and building with people, not so much as a transactional kind of thing. If you want to throw a ton of money at ads, it can be like that. But the biggest power comes from relationships.
Right.
And sometimes you can convince people and teach them that, and sometimes you can't.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. I have a client right now who was kind of dragged, kicking and screaming into the doing social media. And and he's like, yeah, okay, and then he came to me and he said, my wife tells me this is really, really good. And he's like, okay, since my wife said to do it, and so because of that, he bought into it, and he did see the value. But yeah, until then, until she said, you need to be doing this, he was like, no. And it can be a waste of time, especially from the person who's posting, because we do get lost in the squirrel, and I had people sending me videos today, and I was reading this article and looking at that meme and all these various things, and so it can be a huge waste of time.
Yeah.
But that's where you just have to be disciplined. I tell people, it's like, okay, are you the person who used to walk around the office and have to chit chat with everybody in the office, or you spent more time at the coffee maker than actually doing your work? I mean, you can be distracted by anything, and so it's just a matter of not letting yourself get that way.
Yeah. Well, and thinking about it as a tool
Mm-hmm.
versus just something that you're mindlessly using.
Right.
Because there's a lot of amazing wealth
Mm-hmm.
in these social media platforms, even if you never post,
Right.
even if you're just lurking
Mm-hmm.
and observing, you can get a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, you can see what's trending. You can see what people care about, what they're talking about. And then obviously if you have a product or a service, then that's where you can nicely jump in and say, by the way, it's not the buy for me now type of things, but
Exactly.
it's a great way to be able to track what's going on in the world.
Yeah. That example of what you said of just nicely chiming
Mm-hmm.
in. I'm seeing a lot of people do that on Nextdoor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you use Nextdoor.
Yeah. Yep, we do.
Especially
Mm-hmm.
local businesses, being able to chime in when people
Mm-hmm.
have a specific question.
Right.
They post because they're looking for a specific type of business.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're paying attention, you can chime in and say, oh yeah, here, you should check out my website.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be salesy about it, but you have to be willing and paying attention and alert to be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Right. Well, and we were taught as marketers, that we need to solve someone's pain. And so Nextdoor is a great place, as you said, because somebody is saying, I need a painter, I need a plumber, I need this, I need that. So they're not turned off when you say, hey, I'm a plumber. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. You don't want to go way overboard with, printing half of your brochure there, but, you can say, hey, we specialize in small homes, or, we like to do this type of project or that type of project, and just, kind of the soft sell type of thing. But yeah, they asked for it. So it's okay to say, hey, and, same thing with recommending somebody, hey, we use this plumber, we used whoever, because and that, I think, really is one of the big benefits to Nextdoor if you're that type of service provider.
Yes.
And they're looking for things like that. I don't see them saying, hey, now I do see, looking for a dentist. That tends, but not a lot of doctors. So I don't know what the difference there is. But yeah, they tend to be looking for services. And so if you're a service provider, you definitely should be on Nextdoor monitoring what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, there's so many different places as well outside of Nextdoor, but, it's you don't have to be coming up with tons of original content to be able to take advantage of opportunities like that.
Right.
It just takes a little bit of time to go on and, set that timer, say, all right, I'm going to surf for 10 minutes, see what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on in my network, so that I
we get so sidetracked. And I tell them, set a timer. Or like people say, when are you on LinkedIn? Well, I'm on LinkedIn while I'm having breakfast. So however long it takes me to eat my breakfast at my desk is how long I'm spending on LinkedIn. And of course, LinkedIn, it's harder to get truly sidetracked. If I'm reading an article, it's probably a business article that's good for me to read. But it's set that timer and then be rigid about it. You can go back later in the evening and check and see what everybody posted during the day. But, when you're trying to do business, do business.
Yes. Yes. I had a friend who, she was in the mortgage industry, worked a lot with real estate agents. And, she would set timers to spend 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at the end of her day just to interact with her agents' posts. And she would use the friends list on Facebook. And she made a list of just her real estate contacts that she wanted to nurture. And so then she just surfed through their content. It wasn't everything, but she would set that timer for 5 minutes, beginning and end. That's how she would start and end her day. And it was nice because that's a pretty good rhythm for people to feel like, wow, she's active, but she's not on all the time. So there's plenty of ways you can be strategic about it.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned being on all the time. That's one of the drawbacks too. If you're on all the time, so liking, commenting, sharing, do whatever the heck you're doing, other people are going, well, aren't you supposed to be working? And even if you're someone like you or I, who that is our job, we still have to watch that. I had somebody just a couple of days ago that said, I'm going to call you at X time. And I responded and I said, no, that's not a good time. And they said, well, you're always on Facebook then. Okay.
Wow. I've never had anyone say, oh, I know you're on at this time of the day.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, and of course mine's on, but I might not be on. I mean, and so I watch that now. It's like, oh, I might want to not be there. And same thing with if I don't want them contacting me, if I don't want a client contacting me in the evening, then I might not be on because I am friends with some of my clients, and that's definitely one of those things that's up for debate. It's very much a personal choice, but I don't want them seeing that I'm on and posting and thinking, oh, I can send Deb something to post. Now, typically what I do with my clients is if they send me something before 9 p.m., I will probably post it. If it's after that, probably not. And, weekends are kind of hit or miss. But, again, that's your own personal preferences. But, people do watch and see when you're on there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that piece. It's interesting because you're probably very similar. You've got people that you're friends with in all different time zones.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
But about half the people I work with are on East Coast time. So me being in Colorado, they're 2 hours ahead, which works out pretty well for the evening times.
Right.
Because, they're already ready for bed. And I'm starting to wind down. And but I've never really thought about people kind of watching what time I'm on. So I'll have to start paying attention to that now.
Well, and this is just, a personal aside. I set expectations for my clients. I tell them, typically I work between X and X, and I say, anytime other than that, I might not be available. And I just leave it kind of general like that. But, and that is something it's, that I've talked about on other programs with people who have their own, especially a home-based business, is we have to set those boundaries. Maybe to tell our clients, you know what, I might respond to you at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night, but if it's something big, it's probably going to cost you more.
Right.
Because and if it could wait till Monday morning, let's have it wait till Monday morning.
Well, and this is a recent feature. In the past, I used Boomerang, but recently, I don't know if you use Gmail, but they added the feature where you can schedule emails. Have you played around with that at all? Oh,
I love being able to schedule emails.
So,
especially like when you said we're in all these different time zones.
Yes. So I actually, when people, sometimes I'll be working in the evening or on a weekend, but I will schedule the email to go out the next morning, first thing. That way they know, even though they sent me something in the evening and I looked at it right away, they don't necessarily know if I'm looking at it and responding to it right away or waiting until the next morning.
Right.
So I've started using that a ton now that it's just so easy. And that was huge for me on vacation too. I recently went on a trip and I was a few hours ahead of most people. So I was able to work and schedule things to make it look like I was working on a normal day, because sometimes people feel a little awkward if you're out on vacation for too long or longer than they might take or whatever. So that was a super, super great tool to be able to use. I wish there were more tools like that on social media.
Right.
But
Oh yeah. And the nice thing is you got it done and off your plate. I'm one of these, I have to mark it as unread. And that's the only way sometimes I remember to go back and do it. But, I got it done. I got it taken care of. And then I don't have to worry about remembering it, the next day or on Monday.
Yep.
So cool.
All about clearing that mental load.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, it depends on what you're doing, what your clients are, what your product is, all those various things. But yeah, there's so many tools that are out there as a small business owner. And that's one of the cool things about, when I get to talk to people on my program is finding all of these really fun things out. And because we can't, it's just like with social media, we can't know them all.
No.
And because there's just far too many.
Yeah, I love it when I'm meeting with new people or meeting with clients and they're like, oh yeah, you use such and such, and they'll mention some marketing tool and I'm like, no, I've never heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's new ones every single day.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible to keep up with.
Yep. Yeah. Or I'm part of a mastermind group and they'll be talking about some of the things that they use. And as they're talking about it, I'm Googling it. Yeah, there have been times where I thought, oh, must check into that. And other times I'm like, yeah, no, not so much.
Yeah, not worth it for me.
Yeah. Well, and in a lot of ways, I'm still kind of old school. I just want to go in, I want to do it and be done with it and,
Sure.
Not have to worry about, okay, now am I planning this 3 weeks in advance and, all those various things.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, okay, let's get back to talking. This is fun. I love conversations like this.
Oh, good.
I love reading your book. Hold your book up. So it's called We're All Ears, How to Increase Your Impact, Influence, and Success Online in a Noisy World. Oh, I love the picture. See, I have a digital version that Valerie sent me, and so I didn't have that. But listening really is absolutely key to being successful, especially, when you're using social media. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, why is listening so important?
Well, listening is important because it's one of those ways where you really show people that you value and respect their perspective or where they're coming from. And as a marketer, it's super important to be listening. And that's where kind of some of that like lurking on social media, not necessarily posting, but paying attention to what's going on is going to give you some really big keys and clues as to where you should be focusing your attention. So if you're paying attention to what your ideal customer is wanting and what their pain points are, and your product or service can address that pain point, it really opens up the door for you to be able to really meet that need directly. A lot of times we don't pay attention to what our audience is actually needing.
Because I know what they need.
Right? Yeah, we've got such big egos. But, the more we can listen and pay attention, the more effective we're going to be with our marketing. And we're going to be able to connect better because our audience and our potential customers are going to feel like we are meeting their needs specifically. We're not just kind of sort of meeting their needs, but we're actually, solving a specific problem, and they feel like they got that personalized attention. And, sometimes any of those opportunities where you can put that personal touch into things really helps it go the extra mile.
Right.
And so, I don't know, I think listening is one of the most underutilized tools within social media. Because a lot of times we feel this urgency to get our message out.
Right.
But if we're paying attention and listening, honestly, it opens up the door for us to, we don't have to feel the pressure to be posting constantly.
Right.
We don't have to be yelling our message out to the world. It's a little bit more of a relaxed approach, but I think it's a little bit more effective.
Right. Yeah. And the push versus pull is always so interesting. And, and of course, with listening, we're also talking about reading. And I say that because I just am amazed at especially LinkedIn, when I connect with somebody and bam, I get their whole sales brochure. And, it's like, okay, first of all, we have no relationship. So why am I going to buy anything from you? I don't care what it is you're selling. I'm not going to spend my money with you because I don't know who you are. And and so they've obviously skipped numerous steps there. But what I really get a big kick out of are the people who are going to tell me how to do social media. I'm like, And I've been known to respond and say, maybe you should go back and read my profile again.
Exactly.
And, because clearly you didn't. And, and then on occasion, I've had a couple apologize. I've had one that just sent me the same information twice. I responded and so she probably had things automated.
Yeah, clearly.
And then I've had others that are like, what? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay. You're trying to sell me what I do.
Right. They're not paying attention at all.
Right. Right. And so that's where it is so important. If you're connecting with somebody and whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, any of the other platforms, read a little bit about them, and especially on LinkedIn, folks. I mean, the worst thing is to try and sell somebody something that they do, and so they have no need for it. It's an insult.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually I feel like a growing problem right now, because there are so many tools out there to automate some of that messaging on LinkedIn and the connection requests on LinkedIn. It's one of those things that I'm not quite sure how I feel about it.
Right.
I mean, there's something that to me feels icky about it. And it's hard because now that so many people have been abusing that, people who are making legitimate emails or message responses.
Right. You don't even read them.
You don't even read them. And so it's how do you cut through the noise and, how do you really use it authentically? Because I don't know about you, but it sounds like we're probably in the same spot, but I'm starting to feel very numb to a lot of those messages that come through. Right.
I read like maybe the first sentence.
Yes.
And, and if it's very clear that it's trying to sell me something from somebody I have no knowledge of, I don't even read their message and I don't even respond.
Right.
And you mentioned automating it. It's good and bad, or having someone else do it for you. To me, and you talk about this in your book, it is all about being authentic when we're selling ourselves. When we're wanting to work with somebody as ourself, it's very important that we're authentic. I had sent a friend request to somebody one time on LinkedIn, or accepted one. And it was somebody I had known and worked with for many years. And so, got the connection made and bam, immediately got a response from them that was introducing themselves. And it was so clear that, and I was insulted, and so rather than responding in LinkedIn, I responded in just with a regular email. And I said, I have to tell you, I was insulted by the response that I got from you on LinkedIn. You and I have been friends for over 20 years. And the fact that you didn't even bother to see who it was, I said, that was just insulting. I said, and to get the response that I did, no. And she responded and she said, I'm terribly sorry. I apologize. My VA does all of my LinkedIn. And so, of course, she had no idea that we knew each other, and I it really was something that, like you said, it was icky. I mean, I looked at that and I went, no, and even if we hadn't known each other, there was still just something icky about it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out how, if LinkedIn messaging if there's still a real positive way to do it. For that initial, hey, thanks again for connecting, without sounding like you're a bot or a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
It's a struggle for me because I do come at things from this desire for authenticity, and that's becoming a growing challenge as I'm consulting with clients who really want to be doing something proactive. It's a little bit of a, I don't know, sandpaper issue where I'm rubbing up against something. I'm not sure what to do with it just quite yet.
Well, and I especially recommend LinkedIn for, small business owners and entrepreneurs and C-level folks as a great way to make those connections. And you're right. When I respond to somebody now, if they just send me a request to connect, if it looks like it's good, okay, I connect. But if they sent me a message, hi, I see that we have numerous people, then I'll usually respond and I'll say, use their name. So that way they at least knew I've read that part. But then I'll say, thanks for reaching out. I'm happy to connect. Let me know if there's any way I can be of assistance to you. That's all I say. And it is so funny to see the responses I get because, frequently that has opened up the, gee, I'm going to try and sell you something. I had one person, and it was really funny. He said, well, since you asked, and then he tried to sell me something. But, so he'd at least read the message. But yeah, it is one of those weird things where, and I feel if they took the time to send me a message, I should respond.
Yes.
And so, but yeah, the second they hit me with, hey, I'm going to sell you something, I'm done. I typically don't even respond, or I might say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested at this time.
Sure.
And it's funny. I've got a guy right now who every other day is, have you had a chance to read it? Have you had a chance to read it?
Yeah.
And he's not getting the fact that if I haven't responded the prior 6 times, I'm probably not going to respond the 7th time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I've started doing, which takes extra time. And so I think it's one way to cut through some of this clutter that's building on LinkedIn. But it definitely takes more effort for sure, is starting to use different tools like Loom or different things like that to make a quick personalized hello video and sending the Loom link in a LinkedIn message. And those are fun because you can usually track like the open rates and see who, if your video has been viewed. But it's a slightly different way to use the LinkedIn message box without being as spammy, I guess, with all of the tech that's happening right now.
Right. And the key thing that we're talking about here is, you really talk about this in your book, and it is about being authentic.
Yeah.
The second we try and copy somebody else, that's not going to work. Or more importantly, the second we try to be somebody we're not. And that's hard because, there are people who, we mentioned politics. There are some people who, for them, it's very important that they have their political views out there, whatever they are. And, so I tell people, okay, that's fine, but realize that you could be alienating basically half of the people you're connected with. And so if you're fine with that's cool. But, and I have had people who have said, well, you never comment on things like that. And I'll say no, and I won't. I can count on one finger probably the number of times I've responded to a political post. And I mean, some other times with some other things, but I'm very, very careful about how I go about that.
Sure.
But it does. It comes back to being authentic. I mean, if you are X political party and that's really what you care about, okay, that's fine to post about it as long as you know that it could cost you future business.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important for people to realize that people are always paying attention.
Right.
And I try to be strategic about the things that I post about that have nothing to do with my business. And balancing that so that, I'm not just this robot that's talking about business 24/7, because I know that friends and family, it's not politics, but it's also something that not everyone cares about. Not everyone's an entrepreneur. Not everyone cares about marketing, and so.
We might want to see a picture of you hiking in the Colorado mountains.
Yeah. And, honestly, I think it was about 4 years ago. Gosh, it's been that long. 4 years ago, we got these crazy looking goats. And
you talk about the goats in your book.
I want to see
pictures of these goats.
You want to see a picture? Let me see.
I want to see pictures of these goats.
Well, I have one favorited on my phone. I'll pull it up here and show it on the camera. So if you're watching the video, you can see it. But it's these goats. They grow white curly hair, and it's like having an alpaca. We shear them and we sell the fiber, and because of that, we have an agricultural property or whatever, and so we get money for taxes, and we're farmers. But posting
gentlemen farmers.
Goats. What's that?
You're gentlemen farmers.
Yes, we want to be farmers. But we have these goats, and so I'll post stuff like the goats or hiking or house projects or things like that, because I know that not everyone cares about my business.
Right.
And so politics obviously are a very polarizing thing, but sometimes people get so obsessed with their one thing that they also alienate people.
Right.
I've seen people do this with their kids, posting way too many pictures of their baby. I've seen people do this with their business. I've seen people do this with their MLM business. There's so many different things that you just need to think through, is what I'm posting balanced? Or am I kind of pushing certain people away because I'm posting too much about one thing?
Right. Right. And I mean, obviously, especially on Facebook, people are there for a reason. They might, and so they might only be posting about a certain thing. We show dogs, we show beagles. And so I'm connected with a lot of people on Facebook that also show dogs. And that might be the only thing they ever post about. And so it's really fun when we get together and I realize, oh my gosh, that person's a doctor, or, because they never talk about it because that's how they're using the platform.
Exactly.
But, but from me, they see, okay, I'm rooting for the University of Colorado Buffaloes. I'm probably not going to hike. I might post a recipe now and then. I obviously post about the radio programs and things like that. But so I try and mix it up. But in doing that, then people, they might only be following me because of the dog show world.
Right.
But then all of a sudden they say, you know what, I need to update my LinkedIn profile. And I remember that Deb has been posting about that. And so that's kind of where that comes back together.
Exactly. Yeah, you're planting seeds every time you post something, regardless of what platform it's on. And, you don't have to overtly say, I have 3 LinkedIn sessions available this month. You can just share a recent win from a client that you helped their profile with. But yet they're paying attention because they see the Beagle stuff. And so they're willing to, see the other stuff related to the business and the radio show and things like that because they care about the Beagles. But then you open up the door for them to see all of the other stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it's all about balance. And like you said, stay true to who you are. If we can stay true to who we are, honestly, we're going to attract the right people and we're going to repel the people that are not right for us.
Right. And I love that. And you talk about that in your book. I think it's very important to repel the people that just aren't a good fit, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally, because we don't want to waste our time either way. I mean, it's like when we walk into a store and you really weren't interested in buying anything, but they're going to come and pester you to death, right? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? Well, then you're just annoyed and you want to leave. But if I had, if they had said, can I help you? Well, no, I'm really just browsing. If they'd gone away, that would have been perfect. Because then I could call them back if and when I was interested. And the same thing happens with social media. I mean, if we repel the people who aren't a good fit right then, that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I the other day, somebody was posting and they said, I saw that so-and-so unfriended me. Okay. Right. And I mean, it's same. I always like the people who keep track on their e-newsletters as to who unsubscribes. It just means it wasn't a good fit for them. So why bother sending it to them and pestering them with your message if it's not what they care about right then?
Yeah. And that's where, a lot of times people, they get so obsessed with the vanity metrics of, I have X amount of followers, or, I have X amount of people on my email subscriber list. But if 90% of them don't care about your business, then it's worthless. You're actually downgrading your potential reach by, you've diluted it with all these people that don't care.
Right.
I had a client who went out and bought a ton of Facebook likes for their page.
Danger.
Right? Do not do that.
Yeah.
Went out and bought, and they were all, I within a 24-hour period, they didn't even tell me this was happening. I just saw it happening, and I was like, oh no, this is the end. I can't work with them anymore. Because, and their reach actually went down.
Right.
Because it's a ton of fake accounts. And so Facebook started seeing that, hey, no one's really engaging with these posts. Why would we show it to the people that are real accounts?
Right.
And so they actually, they pretty much ruined their Facebook page by buying all these fake likes.
Right.
And people don't really like to talk about it, but they want those numbers fast, and they don't realize that, sometimes quality is better than quantity.
Right, right. I mean, it goes back to this is probably before you even were doing this, when we'd have websites and it would say number of visitors, and it was, this kind of running tally. And so people were like, oh my gosh, 10,000 people have been to my page in the last 5 days. Well, I mean, what people really didn't understand is you could set that number to start at a really high number, and all of these. So, I mean, there are ways to game the system. And so same thing with, buying followers, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's, whatever it is. Don't waste your time with that. And it's hard, especially when you're a new business and you're thinking, but I only have 10 people who like my page. Okay, but if they're the right 10 people, they'll be your evangelists. They'll be your tribe. And they'll start telling their friends. And then it spreads by word of mouth. And you get great followers as opposed to hide.
Yeah. I had an author who was brand new, launched his first book this spring. And we launched his Facebook page alongside his book launch.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a brand new, clean slate. I think when we started the launch day, he maybe had 10 followers.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's up to a few hundred, but in that one day, he reached over 6,000 people with 2 posts on Facebook, all because of that snowball effect. And these were really people who were hyper attentive to what he was putting out there in the world. And they were sharing it and engaging with it like crazy. And it caught on. And so to grow his page for that initial, foundational followers was very easy to do.
Right.
And it's all if you've got engaged people.
Right. And that brings me to, another topic that you talk a lot about, and that's being an influencer, being that authority. And I love that concept because, the other thing that so many people just tend to do is post. And that's great. I mean, in many cases that works, but when you're the person, either it's, you're the head of your business, you're the face of your business, to me, it is very important to be an influencer and to be an authority. So tell us, what is an influencer?
Well, so influencer marketing, or the term influencer, has been thrown around a lot lately. And a lot of times people think of bloggers or really famous people who get it.
Kim Kardashian
being an influencer. But honestly, the reality is that if anyone in your sphere of influence has made a buying decision or has made a lifestyle decision or, has taken your advice in any way, you are influencing them.
Right.
And so when you start to view yourself as someone who has power to shape people's opinions and buying decisions, you realize that, everything that you do has the potential to influence people. So really, I think anyone can be an influencer, but people who take it seriously are paying attention to, okay, am I posting things on social media that are turning people away? Or what am I posting and what value is someone getting from this?
Right.
What am I doing here that's going to help bring value to their life? And then as a result, by providing value to them, I've earned the right to be heard by them. I've earned their trust. Then when I tell them, hey, you should go do this program, or you should buy this book, or this is a must-see movie, they're going to trust you.
Right.
Hands down. They're not even going to question it. They're going to say, oh, Valerie said I should read this book. I'm going to go buy it on Amazon right now.
Right. Yeah. And I think the problem is that because of the celebrities, influencers have gotten a bad name. When we hear that, a 16-year-old has 2.5 million YouTube followers to watch her put on makeup, and she's an influencer, then you think, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's, she's 16 years old. What else is she going to do? And of course, 16-year-old girls tell each other, oh, you have to watch this. We kind of jokingly said Kim Kardashian. Well, she has built her business on doing that. Yep. But, if for many people, if they influence 10 people, that's going to be successful for them. And so I think we need to kind of dial it back a bit and think, and be realistic is maybe the thing. I don't want to have 2.5 million followers on YouTube. I'm happy with what I have because they're the right people.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, you really want to think through, do you really want that kind of fame?
Mm-hmm.
If you had 2.5 million people following you on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and you walk through the airport in Atlanta, could
Right.
you walk through the airport
Right.
without
Mm-hmm.
being mobbed by
Mm-hmm.
people wanting an
Mm-hmm.
autograph or a selfie
Mm-hmm.
with you? So it's there's a catch-22 of being famous isn't necessarily
Right.
always a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you want, go for it.
Right.
Someone like me, it's not my cup of tea.
And those are the people who are licking the ice cream, and I mean all those things. We've mentioned quantity and quality. I mean, there was a story last week about an influencer, and she was a teenager who has 1.5 million fans or whatever it is, and she came out with her own T-shirt line, and she couldn't sell 20 T-shirts.
Yes.
She has these millions of followers. And so clearly the millions of followers either A, aren't paying attention, which is probably the biggest thing. Right. Or, they looked at it and went, I don't want that. That's not my style. That's not whatever. Too much price, whatever it was. So she really wasn't an influencer. She was just somebody who had, a platform that wasn't using it in the best way.
Well, and I think it's important too to realize that there's probably some influencers out there who don't have a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have millions of followers on Instagram, mm-hmm. but they have a huge email list.
Right.
That is engaged.
Mm-hmm.
They have people that are subscribed on a messenger bot.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those numbers aren't necessarily public.
Right.
But they're very valuable. I mean, if someone has stayed on your email list for
mm-hmm.
a long period of time and is actually clicking on stuff in it,
mm-hmm.
they're pretty engaged with what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So it's important to realize that when you're talking to brands, you're considering partnerships, mm-hmm. sometimes those public numbers don't tell the full story.
Right. Yeah. And so looking at them, it's like, and that's where it's interesting because of course the people who get those huge numbers then get people who are paying them. Makeup is probably one of the, makeup and fashion.
Sure.
You have somebody who is paying, the 16-year-old girl to be showing all of those things or whatever. Well, then it doesn't become authentic. I'm sorry if I'm paid to promote your whatever, that, I might not like it. I might think it's the worst product or service in the world, but I'm going to say I love it because, hello, I'm being paid for it. That's why celebrity spokespeople always bother me. I look at them and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't think Matthew McConaughey drives a Lincoln. Now, he might. I mean, Lincoln's a fairly upscale car.
That's a really good example.
Yeah. Or Jennifer Aniston. I'm really sorry, but I doubt that she buys her makeup at the corner drugstore.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think that's where influencers started was
mm-hmm.
it was just everyday people
right.
that started building up this
mm-hmm.
following, and you tend to trust them a little bit
mm-hmm.
more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think, one of the distinguishers
mm-hmm.
between spokespeople and influencers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the positives about influencers is in today's digital world, we really do have the opportunity to build a following mm-hmm. based around people that have that authentic they built it themselves mm-hmm. kind of brand. Right. So it's kind of a new thing in the world of advertising when you look mm-hmm. at the history of advertising.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because, in the history of advertising, we did, the spokespeople were really the big thing. I mean, you hired the celebrity, the sports figure, the whoever it was to talk about your product. And then it kind of evolved to not, and now it's coming back to that. But, it's like you said, it's got to be authentic. I mean, if I don't think that person read that book, used that product, did whatever, doesn't matter what they say to me. And again, that's even if it's just on Nextdoor. If somebody posts and says, hey, I'm looking for a plumber, if I respond and it's clear that, I didn't really use that plumber, but I knew their name, and I'm like, oh, whatever. But the really funny thing that goes along with this is that we give so much weight to say, especially say on Facebook, somebody's opinion on Facebook. You might post that, this is the greatest hiking shoe in the world.
Right.
I don't really know you, but because we're friends on Facebook, somehow that gives it a little bit more credibility.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're one step closer versus just being a complete stranger and
Right.
having like real face.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we're not friends, but we're in the same
Mm-hmm.
Facebook group,
Right.
just having a real face
Mm-hmm.
versus a company
Mm-hmm.
logo
Mm-hmm.
is really helpful.
Right.
So, that's where those personal profiles
Mm-hmm.
can be so
Mm-hmm.
beneficial.
Right.
Because people are a lot more willing to connect with me on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn versus follow my company page on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn.
Right.
It
Well,
just,
and the people who set up their LinkedIn personal profile using either A, their company logo, or B, their company name,
yeah,
I don't connect with them at all.
I
I'm
don't
like,
either.
no, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't either. And yeah, it's amazing how much power you can get
Mm-hmm.
when you start to embrace that personal face-to-face interaction.
Right. But it is scary because people are saying, well, I don't want to tell people about that. Well, obviously, it's only what you feel comfortable doing.
Sure.
And I mean, families are probably one of the biggest things that I always caution people about is giving too much information about your children.
Yes.
And so, I have a lot of friends who have kids, who have grandkids, who they might never even refer to them by name, or it might just be an initial, or things like that. And I mean, that's kind of the sad, creepy thing is that, there are the weird, creepy people in the world. And so you have to be careful about that. But we also don't need to know every single thing. I don't need to know what you had for lunch today unless it was something spectacular.
Right.
I did a post yesterday, and I was telling you, a little bit about this right before we started the program. Got my hair cut.
Yes.
And, I actually had several inches cut off, which is kind of funny, because my hair. But anyhow, so I did a post, and so this was a very self-serving post. And I did a before, after, and a picture, and a before picture and an after picture. It's got like 200 people who have commented, and, all positive. My husband was the only one who went, but yeah, everybody else all positive. But I also posted a link to the wonderful woman who did the cut, and gave her a recommendation at the same time. Now, most people are not going to be able to go to her because of where she is, but it wasn't an entirely self-serving post.
Exactly.
But it did feel a little bit weird when pretty soon I had, I thought I muted that. My apologies. When I thought I had 200, or when there's like 200 people who, I like your haircut. Okay, it did my ego good, but at the same point, it's like, okay, this is kind of silly, but yeah, sharing some of those personal things really is okay. Going overboard about it is the problem.
Yeah, well, and I think too, it helps connect people with some of the values that you hold dear.
Right.
So, for example, my husband and I, we've been refinishing or redoing this house that we bought 5 years ago. And when we bought it, it was pretty rough.
It had bats. You had bats. See, I read your book. You had bats.
We had bats in our house, like in our house, baby bats, we think. And so we couldn't really do much about it. We had to like space it out. But yeah, this place was rough, and it's been a true adventure. And I know that it's one that a lot of people either they wish they could live out in the country, or they wish they could live in a log house.
Right. So we live vicariously through you.
They live vicariously through us. So they see all these projects, and some of them are just, us with gas masks on, and our hair's all dusty, and I have no makeup on, no nothing. And it's not Instagram worthy by any means. But by posting some of those pictures, it shows people, hey, Valerie's willing to, get in the trenches, willing to do the hard work, and so it sends these subconscious signals to people that, hey, she does this for her house, but she also does this in her job.
Right.
And so I think it's important, like, if you do care about family in the community, you should be showing those pictures with your family. You can decide how personal you want to get with them and how often you want to share them, but realize that a lot of the stuff that happens in your personal life does have some effect on what people are perceiving about you in the professional realm. Right.
Well, and then sometimes it makes an immediate connection, whether it's, hey, we go to the same church, or, same denomination. I joke about the fact that I post a lot about the University of Colorado. And so I have had some people who have said, you know what, we are, from X school. We don't like University of Colorado, so we're not going to deal with you. Again,
Yeah.
kind of that's the repel factor.
Yes.
But I've had other people who have very specifically said, I'm a CU alumni. I want to work with other CU alumni.
Exactly.
So, or reading the same books, all of those various things. So that's where it is so important to put in those little personal touches.
Personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the same thing, not just on fun platforms like Facebook and Instagram, but on LinkedIn too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've got a little bit of personal stuff on LinkedIn. I've got a little bit of personal stuff on LinkedIn, because it's where we connect. I looked on yours specifically to see where you went to school, because knowing that you lived in Colorado, I'm like, oh,
Right.
you're not a CU person,
Yeah.
but you weren't University of Nebraska. So then I was okay.
Yeah. So I'm good there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
cool.
you can find all sorts of, that's where social media is a really big powerhouse. You can really find out little tidbits of information about people that when you then see them in person, you can take that relationship deeper than, just starting from a blank slate.
Right. Well, and we tell people to do that when you're meeting with them in person, like say doing a job interview, and you see that they've got a picture of their kid playing softball, then you mention it, and things like that. And I always tell people, now, if you saw it on social media, tell them, hey, I saw on your Facebook page, just so they don't think you're a stalker. But yeah, I mean, it's a great way to be able to connect with people.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. It's all about connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what social media was built for in the first place. And I think that's what it's important as marketers to remember, that's ultimately what it's about. Even today, with all of the algorithm changes and the changes in different trends, it's all about relationships.
Right. And it is one of the important things to remember is it's not just the only platform you should be using, though. I mean, I have people who say, well, I don't have a website because I have a Facebook page. Okay, well, Facebook owns that. So, no. And so it needs to be something that ties in. And that is part of what you do. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when I first started, I really was focused on the social media kind of graphics end of things. But as you start realizing, hey, we need to position ourselves as authority figures, you realize that brand really needs to have some original content. And so over the years, my consulting and my kind of done for you services have evolved into offering blogging, video blogging, graphics, all of these things where we're actually creating some of the content for you to position you as the expert and the authority that someone should think of in your industry. And then helping you broadcast that on your different social media platforms in a way that's strategic. And so sometimes that's just consulting. Sometimes it's done for you. But that's kind of the gist of it. And so honestly, a better term for it over time, I've learned, is content marketing, because we're really using content to position a brand in a strategic way. But not a lot of
variety of places and platforms.
They understand social media, they understand the word blogging, they understand websites. They don't understand that honestly all of them work together. And that's what we do with clients, is help them all work together.
And if you've got a direct mail campaign, it needs to have the same information that is on your website, that you're posting on Facebook, that you talked about in your e-newsletter. And it all does have to tie together.
Yeah, it all should sound like it's coming from the same place.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, Valerie, we could just continue with this forever. And I love talking about this, obviously. So tell us how people find you and connect with you online.
Yeah, so if you want to follow me professionally, search for Valerie Morris over on LinkedIn, on Facebook, different places like that. But you can also search for Tintero Creative. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing on our farm and stuff with our goats, you can follow me at Simple Life Vibes over on Instagram, online, different platforms. We're over there on Simple Life Vibes. And if you're interested in finding my book, it's available on Amazon. We're All Ears, bestseller book. And I had a lot of fun putting that together and hope it can be a great resource for you.
Perfect. And I loved reading it because there were so many things in there that, it was like, oh yeah, yep, not, oh yeah. And, people say, well, isn't that what you do? Well, it is, but it's always good to get reminders and different strategies. I mean, because we all do it very differently. And so it really was a great book. I enjoyed reading it.
Thank you so much.
Great. Well, we've only got a couple minutes left, Valerie. So are there any words of wisdom you'd like to leave everyone with?
I think the one piece of advice that I would give anyone that's listening, regardless of if you're focusing on social media or you're going after that next, the next higher job in your industry and you're working for someone else, or you're just maybe a stay-at-home mom and you're just not sure what's the next step is, I would just encourage you to start doing that thing. Just put yourself out there. I know it's a very scary thing to put your brand, your expertise, who you are out there to the world, but start sharing that knowledge with people. That's honestly a huge part of how my business started getting momentum, was just sharing about it. Just sharing about some of these things that I was doing for other people, sharing things that I found passionate. And it started just sending, these little clues to people that this is what I did. This is what I know how to do. And you could hire me to do it. And so it's scary. You got to dip your toes a little bit at first sometimes, but I would just encourage you to get out there, go do that next scary thing that you've been thinking about, but not quite sure, am I ready to go do it? You are. You have permission today to just go take that next big step.
Perfect. And it's never going to happen if you don't start.
Exactly.
So you've got to take that first step. Well, I have been having an absolutely wonderful time talking with Valerie Morris of Tintero Creative. I am Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.